Hey, ambitious dentist, welcome to Start Your Dental Practice, the show for existing and aspiring dentists to take your dental practice to the highest possible level. I'm your host, Jonathan Van Horn, CPA and ABV, founder of dentistmetrics.com. In every episode, we aim to demystify the how to start a dental practice problem by bringing on world-class dentists, influencers, and consultants in the dental industry to pick their brain about how to get past the barriers involved from going from no practice to being a practice owner to owning your own successful dental practice. Hey guys, today's show features Trevor Maurer of SmileSource. He's the president of SmileSource. This episode's going to be a little bit different because we are kind of showcasing a clever way to do something else in your practice. This is not and this isn't saying you have to go out and sign up for this company, but I think it's important to understand some of the challenges that signing up with this company may be able to help you out with. This isn't for everybody. So just take that and take that nugget before we get into today's interview with Trevor Maurer. We're going to learn a few things today. We're going to learn the surprising statistics that are changing and pushing the retirement age in dentistry back, which is making dentistry more competitive. We're going to learn about the huge financial and marketing benefits that come with group practices. We're going to learn about the legal dangers of oversharing with a local dentist. We're going to learn a lot about what's really difficult out there in the industry today. So at the end of the episode, Trevor does have an exclusive offer for Start Your Dental Practice listeners that you're not going to want to miss out on. So be sure to listen all the way through the entire interview to get access to that. Now, on to today's guest interview with Trevor Maurer. Trevor is the president of SmileSource, which is, if you're not familiar with it, I'm going to let Trevor actually take over and tell us a little bit more about SmileSource because he can do a better job of introing it than I can. I will say that I have recommended some of my own clients to go over to SmileSource. So it would have been great matches for them. That's just my little check mark of approval for SmileSource as a company. So Trevor, say hi to everybody. And if you would, give us a little introduction to SmileSource.
I'd be happy to. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Hello, ambitious dentists, as you say. So I'd be happy to give you an overview. SmileSource is group resources and collaboration for the independent dentist. Mm-hmm. So what we do is we allow the independent dentist to compete in today's changing environment. There's a lot of things going on in dentistry that I'm sure we could talk about.
Absolutely. There's a ton of things going on, especially for younger guys right now. I did a study on it actually, and I saw that the average retirement age for dentists is expanding. So the market's getting older. There's more dentists that are graduating now. So the market is getting bigger. And you've got more competitive people coming into the space, corporate dentistry, more startup practices. You've got so many more levers of competition that are out there. Entrepreneurial dentists opening up big group practices, not even quite the corporate level yet, but they're trying to get to it. That it's getting more and more competitive. And I tell a lot of people, it's difficult, but it's good because if it wasn't that way, then you probably wouldn't be in a great business model. So tell us some of the reasons why a practice may be able to circumvent or be able to be taken advantage over other practices if they can actually get a group together.
Sure, no problem. You've also seen, I want to add to your trends, the last 6 years, a couple other elements are happening. You've got per capita dental spending is flat. Mm-hmm. So you talked very articulately about the demographics of the burgeoning dental community, which does mean it's an attractive business, or why would everybody be trying to get into it? But according to the ADA last year, over half of dentistry was produced in group dental practices. Group in that statement defined as 3 or more doctors. So that's small group, but group nonetheless. And then large group with 20 or more practices, that segment of the market is growing by 25% per year for dental production. So explosive growth. And since the mid 70s, we've seen a plummet in independent solo dentists to today at around 54%. So you've got this universe of 150,000 dentists, which is really 75,000 dentists that are independent solo dentists in our estimations. So that makes for a pretty interesting environment when you've got these large DSOs and groups using, let's talk insurance for a moment, using one tax ID number with the ability to negotiate higher reimbursements than the individual dentist. They are able to negotiate better supplies and lab and equipment costs than the individual dentist. They're able to outmarket because they have a marketing department and agencies and resources. They're able to outmarket the individual dentist. Take any city you want, take your hometown, and have even a small group practice of 15 locations do a marketing campaign with the local sports teams and in the newspaper or print, radio, TV, whatever you want. Compare that to the resources for one dentist, right? You just can't do it. And then when it comes to learning and from CE or practice management, as an independent dentist, where do you turn, right? You can turn to specific organizations that have their intended educational tracks, but then you're kind of labeled as that type of dentist. And practice management's going to cost you $25,000 to $50,000 a year, and you might not need it, or you maybe needed it last year, but you have to make that decision on your own. So what we do in all those scary categories I just talked about is we enable the independent dentist to have the confidence and the strength in numbers and collaboration with other great dentists across the country to have experience in those scary areas so they know what to do.
And there's a lot of value in just having more people involved that you can actually get ideas off of. Because here's what happens whenever I go to like study clubs and things like that, is that everyone is open to speaking with other people. But what happens is that they don't want to talk numbers. They don't want to talk the business side, because while everyone is typically supportive in those groups, they sometimes, if they're too close knit, they can be competitive with those people, because they can see it as if I tell you how to do things better, that's going to hurt me. They think they see it as zero sum, which I don't believe in dentistry is as big of a deal as a lot of people think. Now, if a corporate guy moves in next door, that's absolutely going to be zero sum in some circumstances.
Right.
But having a peer group to be able to talk to other business owners is so valuable. Whenever I started my business, I mean, I searched for that because it was so difficult, because you don't know everything at the beginning as far as, a lot of the times you'll have the technical skills, but right. As far as like figuring out, like, do I want to use Google Apps or do I want to use Outlook as my email? Like, I don't know which one's better for me. You've got a million little decisions that if you could, just shoot a message out to a bunch of people that are in your same predicament, or maybe have gone through what you've done, you can so leverage that experience into a lot of knowledgeable information and be able to get past a lot of things. So one thing that we've talked about before the interview is that there actually is that component of small source of having, not only having, the whenever you were talking about all the things that corporate practices do, I was jotting them down, so they can out-market you, they can out-negotiate you, they can out-spend you, and a lot of times they can out-infrastructure you, basically. And they have all this power behind them because they have so much cash behind them. One thing that you can do in that's one thing that SmileSource can help with. But talk to us a little bit more about just the group mentality of what all the group allows you to do.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So I am going to talk about our online collaborative tool that you just briefly addressed. But I want everyone that's listening to understand that a lot of the items we talked about so far in this interview, if you were to do just as a group of dentists at a study club or an event and share sensitive information, some of that is going to get you in trouble for collusion. There's a lot of things you can't share. So we've structured our business model so most of that we can share. Right? So we can share across practices, across state lines. And in fact, when somebody joins, they get a protected trade area that no one else can join SmileSource in that market without their written permission. So there's no chance of anyone else coming in and, quote unquote, stealing your secrets and stealing your patients across the street. So in terms of collaboration is, a big part of the sentence, right? We provide resources of a group collaboration to independent dentists. So collaboration happens in a number of different levels. We have a great national meeting once a year. We have great regional meetings and CE events 2 or 3 times a month across the country, all over the place. Probably have 40 CE events this year alone. And we always have some collaboration at those as well. And then we have these local meetings that are live that you can attend. They're all business focused. And there's a curriculum for the year on what piece of the business we focus on in each of those particular meetings. But what do you do? It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon and you have to make a decision. You can't wait 3 weeks for the next meeting and you can't reach somebody on the phone. We have this online collaborative tool where you just go online and literally you'll throw it out to the group and people will follow different threads. And it could be a clinical question. Like today, I saw pictures online where, one of our doctors had a question about what treatment plan to recommend. And he put the images up and he put his professional opinion. About 10 people jumped in. 20 minutes later, he had a treatment plan he liked and off he went. Right down to, what cone beam should I buy? A longer term type discussion. I'll tell you, at the end of the year, it's funny. And, here in the finance world, people want to spend to get their tax deductions. You should see the flurry of activity. What's the best capital equipment to buy? So in December, our vendors in capital equipment are like vultures around us because they know they're going to have a lot of sales and there's a lot of recommendations. And our docs are very loyal to those vendors, partners that are on our formulary.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense, especially for someone, if we're speaking to the audience right now, there's probably a lot of people that are, D4s or about to be out in the dental industry, or they're out as an associate and they've seen what works in the practice they're in right now, or they've seen, they've kind of theorized what's going to work based off of their education at this point. A lot of practice owner or dental students go straight into ownership without actually going to a practice for a substantial amount of time. And that part alone would excite me if I was a current dental student, because you're not going to be dependent on one person's opinion, which is your own. A lot of people will seek out practice management gurus or consultants or marketing experts and all these other things. And to me, that type of resource is so valuable because you can just ask the question, what has worked for you guys with direct marketing? What has worked with you guys with SEO? I've received this bid today of this type of work on my website. Does that make sense to you guys? And you will get so much feedback. And at the end of the day, it's your decision of what you do. But that feedback is how you can evaluate different mindsets and different perspectives, because it's so easy to get wrapped up whenever you start a business. There's a million things you've got to be thinking about at all different times. There's a bunch of, it's not all big decisions. It's a lot of very, very small decisions. And you get tired of making those decisions sometimes.
Have you ever seen a practice that was just planned so poorly, you just can't sell it? Or if you buy it, you're just in trouble from the start?
Yeah, there's plenty of practices out there that we will look at, and it's been in decline for so long. The revenues are dipping. They haven't updated their fee schedule. The staff is basically running the show at that point. There's just a lot of different things that happen. So absolutely.
So that's a problem, right? Obviously. So what we do is we obviously work hard to make sure our practices are just better practices, right? Now, clinically, you can argue who's a better clinician. But clearly we target great clinicians that are also currently or want to be great entrepreneurs, right? So here's the numbers. You're a numbers guy. So our production of our practices is triple the rate of growth of the market. So the market's currently estimated at 2.5% growth in production, and we're just under 8%. So that drops to the bottom line. When you buy through SmileSource vendor partners, using our discounts with them, you should save 2.5% to 3% of production. So that's a 10% swing at the EBITDA line, at the profit line. So if your practice is making 30% profit and you said 10% overall in your production, you really grew your profit by 30%.
Absolutely.
That's living below the line. So if you want to grow your profit by 30%, collaborate with a bunch of great dentists and enjoy dentistry just a little bit more, right? So the proof's in the numbers. I could sit here and tell you how great our marketing is and how great our meetings are, but when our docs report their growth in production and their reduction in expenses, at the end of the day, that's our goal.
And so, I feel like we kind of skipped over a little bit, but just for the people out there listening, what a group is that it's a bunch of dental practice owners that have banded together to be able to approach different vendors to say, look, if you service our group, we need a preferential rate because there are so many of us that we can give you a lot of business, and in return the vendor wins because they get a high volume of business and they're willing to give you discounts.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that a little bit with how that works in small source. So you said that there's a 2 to 3% lower on average as a percentage of revenue for dental supplies. So I tell a lot of people we shoot for somewhere between 5 and 7% of dental supply cost to revenue collections. It depends on your area of the country, it depends on your type of source, the type of procedure mix you have, and a lot of different things, but that's typically our goal. And we find that a lot of people can't even get close to that every time just because of a number of different factors. So tell me, tell me how if I was a dental practice owner and I was at 9% of revenue went to dental supplies, how you'd be able to help us out.
Sure. And I'd like to scale the conversation just a little bit broader than supplies, right? So
sure.
As an example, our supply average for our members is 4.5%, right? So we're very focused on that. But also, if you look at supplies and lab and equipment, those are 3 outlays that we can really control. We can't control your staff costs, right? That's more in the walls of the building. But what are you doing every day that we can control? So 4 things. Buying, right? We can help you with the pricing of everything you already buy, all the high quality products you already buy. Marketing, CE, and collaborative practice management, right? So those are the 4 things we can help you with. It's really hard for me to demonstrate, or our organization to demonstrate, the value of our CE, the value of our marketing, the value of our collaborative practice management. Who wants to go to another meeting? If we sit down with somebody and say, hey, join our great company, you're going to pay a fee and go to more meetings. Forget it. Conversation over. But if we're able to say, look, would you like your practice to be more profitable, probably more fun, and we can help show you how to get there? I'm interested. Tell me more. So the easiest part to understand is the vendor piece, right? You're going to buy this stuff. You bought it yesterday, you bought it today, you're going to buy it tomorrow. So what we do is we have a preferred vendor formulary. We have 105 vendors in every category. And we get great pricing from the large names in exchange for not guarantees, but promises of delivering revenue to that organization. I say not guarantees because none of our dentists are forced to buy off of we'll call it the quote unquote formulary that we provide. But it's pretty darn hard not to, right? The deal is great. The product's been vetted. The peers on the collaborative online forum talk about the experience is good and bad. We test everything way too much probably before we launch it to the group. We need to make sure that it works. Because last thing we want is a product that we negotiate for our members a great deal and then an execution plan, and it's not a good product. All right, we never want to waste chair time.
Right. So
with that, we're taking, when you look at supplies, labs, and equipment, we're easily taking 2.5 to 3% down. So if you add up supplies and lab, let's say you're running 14, there's no reason why you shouldn't get down to 11, right? Just based upon following these easy steps. And we're not suggesting all of your lab business goes to our labs, but there's a good bit of lab business that makes sense, and it's great quality work. And same with supplies.
And I have a feeling that if the quality was to be dipping, you'd be hearing about it in that community that you've built.
We do. Yeah. If there's ever a problem, right? Like, people don't complain about one crown where maybe the margins weren't good, but if they have an issue with any vendor at all, not just labs, it gets blasted and it's fixed by the end of the day. And we'll have presidents of any of these companies calling these doctors and getting it fixed, because the last thing they want is 300 doctors to stop ordering, right, from this company because they didn't treat somebody right. Right. So there's a lot of power in that. It's interesting. So the Philadelphia Eagles the last couple of years have been really changing out their roster So if you're an Eagles fan or not, to the listeners, I apologize. Whether you are or not, I'm not advocating the Eagles. But they've been getting bigger players. And the coach was interviewed recently, and they said, what's with the shift to all of these bigger players? And he said, well, it's simple. Big people push around little people.
Oh, Trevor.
It's great, right? How easy is that? Yeah. So the larger we are and the more that we act in acts of unity, the more power we have. I'm sorry, but if you're an individual dentist, even with a $5 million practice, you're not going to be able to negotiate as well as 300, 400, 500 practices that act together.
A way to think about that from the listener's point of view is if you were to have the threat of one patient leaving that had that was a $2,000 a year patient, we'll say for some reason they're going to be $2,000 a year, or you were and they were threatening to leave, or you had a bunch of docs that were doing or a bunch of patients that were doing $1,000 a year, and you had 300 of those people threatening to leave. If any one of those guys got ticked off, that'd be a lot of incentive for you to make sure that you're giving them a good product, because you've got 300 of those people sitting in your practice. So that's great. So you said 300. Is that the number of practices that are currently with SmileSource? 325.
It goes up, 12 every month.
Mm-hmm.
It's growing organically. Docs are telling their friends about it and getting them in because we hear a lot, hey, this sounds too good to be true. And, so we don't advertise, we don't run around and recruit so that we can get every doctor across the country in it, because that's not what we envision of the future, right? We envision the future that SmileSource is a network of signature dental providers. So great patient care. Our patients should be able to move from Atlanta to Houston, go to the SmileSource website, find a SmileSource doctor, and get a similar quality of care.
Sure.
So we do vet people when they come in, and not to spend too much time on this, but we say no to people as well.
Yeah, makes sense. I'll say no to clients all the time. Just because,
clients, there's clients that are just gonna take and not give, right?
Absolutely. You gotta be willing to be a good match. If you're not a good match, then it just doesn't work out sometimes.
Yeah, especially in our collaborative environment, because if we have somebody come in that now we have a lot of smart dentists, right? But if somebody comes in that knows it all, right? That makes collaboration in person or online difficult if somebody always knows everything, right? Or if you can't trust them with information, you're not going to open up. So it's a really difficult job for our local leaders to find the right type of dentist. There's lots out there. There's thousands and thousands and thousands that I know will be great matches for us, and we're slowly looking for them.
Absolutely. So you talked about the marketing. You talked about the buying from the vendors, preferred pricing, and things like that. And I have seen some of the numbers that can be brought out by being a part of group buying practices or group purchasing, and it absolutely is a real thing to anyone that's listening out there. I mean, I see the numbers, and it is lower by a high level whenever you go through a group buying power, just because it just makes so much sense for the vendors, and it makes a lot of sense for the docs too. So talk to us a little bit about the marketing. How do you help practices with marketing?
Sure. We help them a number of different ways in marketing. So if you just don't know what you want to do for marketing, right? We have cut and paste marketing programs. Mm-hmm. Here's your postcards. Here's your online. Here's your website. Here's your social media. Here's where you should send them to. Here's the list, right? So very, very turnkey marketing programs. We also have national programs we run twice a year. Those are centered typically around patient referral systems or new patient acquisition, where we'll do a whitening promotion or a power brush promotion. And that we do is, if you are pretty astute already at marketing, you just use us and our agencies as a benefit of being a member. So if you already know what % of marketing you want to spend, and you know how you want to spend it, we'll help you with the creative. We'll help you with the media buy. We have a national media buying license. So whatever you're spending now on your media buy, you're going to save money on, because we'll buy it directly as a media buyer versus going through a media buyer. So it's really tailored to the practice. And there's one more element. So that's 3 for a practice. And the other one for a group is any cities that have the critical mass, like you could do this in Seattle or Spokane or Houston or Dallas, Fort Worth, Denver, Atlanta, Nashville, where our doctors can group together because of the way our business is structured and do cooperative advertising, right? Throw in a little bit of money in a bucket and get the best advertising for a large group, much better than one practice could afford to sustain on their own, because advertising has to be sustainable. Promotion is a one-time shot, right? Advertising is 4 times more effective, many times.
A lot of times I tell people promotion is just going out there and saying that you're doing something, like just trying to get press, and advertising is like going out there and playing something over and over and over and over again. And then I say actually selling is getting someone to actually buy something for you. And so there's 3 different things that go around with that, trying to get case acceptance and things like that, and people to come in the door. So you've talked about this, and you talked about the Smile Source and the brand and everything like that. So if a practice joins Smile Source, or is accepted into Smile Source, I should say, do they have to change their name to say this is the Little Rock office of Smile Source?
No, it's not required. In fact, like many things in our contract, right? They're not required, because if you go back to what our mission is, our mission is preserving independent dentistry. Mm-hmm. So I force you to change your name, change your sign, change your hours, change your office layout. That doesn't feel very independent, does it?
No,
not at all. So you can change your name. I'd say 10% of our practices have chosen to do so. I think as we continue to grow and do more local group marketing, I think there's a benefit to say Dr. John Smith, a member of Smile Source, or branded as Smile Source as he transitions his practice. Also, if you look at accredited care organizations, we're starting to be in a lot more of these negotiations to be awarded local contracts to provide care to Medicare Advantage programs, or right through the regional health boards. And so branded offices help in that way as well, right? But that'll come with time if the doctors choose to do it. We have experience with that in the Vision Source side of the business. We have 25 years of experience with that, right? So here's the stats there. So 50% of them are branded in some way, whether it's full brand or sub brand.
Okay.
So full 50%, 1,600 offices are not branded at all. And it's interesting. Everybody knows the brand LensCrafters, optometry, right? Vision Source has 3 times more locations than LensCrafters, right? Tremendously more buying power, more marketing power, more CE and practice management power, but you don't hear about it because a lot of the practices are not branded. And that's okay, because when we do get these ACO contracts, or we do local marketing, right? We do have a centralized way to distribute the leads to our doctors. So it still works. I think branding may happen, but it's certainly not forced.
That's great. Yeah, I wanted to touch on that because I know that if I was listening, that would be something I'd become concerned over.
Good point.
So tell me a little bit more about, if I were to be a new practice owner, if I were considering joining Smile Source, what that would look like for me. What would I need to do to start that process?
Sure. Well, contact Smile Source, right? Go to smilesource.com. You can use uppercase or lowercase. The internet will figure it out. Smilesource.com, and their phone number's there. There's a contact us button. Just fill it out. We'll be in touch with you. If you're not finding what you're looking for, there's a live chat service. You can chat with somebody, or we'll be in touch with you on a reply to a chat. So you can get specific details for yourself that way. The new grad and the transitioning dentist to a new startup practice, those are really important for the future of independent dentistry. There's less and less people taking that step that will come out of school, $300,000 in debt, buy a practice, people who's going to lend them the money, right? Maybe starting a family, maybe buying a car, buying a house. There's the real possibility of being $1 million in debt, walking out of dental school and trying to get your own practice and start your life all at the same time. So it's rare. So what we do at SmileSource is we literally have a program for new grads and new cold start practice owners where you don't pay anything for a year and a half, right? Because we think that is an underserved market. So what does that mean for us? It means we lose money, but it's an underserved market. It's not philanthropic. It's not a charity, right? But we want you to stay with us for your entire career. And what a great opportunity to understand what we're all about when you're just opening those doors and trying to figure it out, because you're going to make a lot of mistakes. So when you're collaborating, you're going to make a lot less mistakes.
That's a great way of putting it. And everybody out there, don't be afraid of the mistakes from just a business philosophy. There's very few giant mistakes that happen. So those are the ones that you'll lean on expertise of others to get past. But mistakes are a part of business, and your job as a business owner is to, number one, minimize the number of mistakes, which this obviously solves. And as number two is to get past those mistakes that do happen so that it doesn't happen again.
Well said.
Yeah. So great. So that's a very good overview of SmileSource. And just so anyone's listening, Vision Source is like a sister company to SmileSource?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Same founder. And, currently 3,200 locations, the largest group of optometrists in the US by far.
So it's the same. So they have a high degree of pedigree of already doing this with a different market, and now they're servicing the dental side as SmileSource exclusively, right? Is that a fair statement?
We were literally invited into dentistry by a group of dentists that were trying to replicate the Vision Source model, but they just were not able to do it successfully. Mm-hmm. And frankly, they were still practicing. And this is a full-time, need some resources, proposition. So they came to us and you say, hey, we'd be glad to help you. And here's what it looks like. And so that's when we literally moved into the dentistry market, and it's been a wild success. Our growth rate's been phenomenal. Our member satisfaction is very, very high. Our retention rate is incredible. It's better. I live in the South, and our retention rate is better than churches in the South. So we're thrilled, and our members are thrilled, and our, probably most importantly, our vendor partners are thrilled. We're not forcing any of our docs to do anything, but the way that we structure the programs, it just makes sense, and our docs love to use our vendor partners. So they support us in our meetings and our pricing and programs, promotions and education, and they view us as a great partner.
And as you grow, I would imagine those preferred pricings would increase over time, just because if you're a 300 group practice versus a 1,000 group practice, and you're still going to the same vendors and they have the capacity and the ability to serve you correctly, that's the higher level of the practices you get in there, the more quantity you get in there, the higher level of discounts they're going to be able to afford to give you for a number of different reasons. Is that a fair statement too?
So yeah, 100%. It gets better every year. When I came here 2.5 years ago, I think we had 30 or 40 offices and probably less vendors than that. Right. And it was just starting. That's just the point in time where we're at. So now with 325 offices, 105 vendors, tremendous amount of controlled volume. If you just think about our lab business we control with that many offices, we're controlling $16-17 million in lab spend. Mm-hmm. Right. Control is probably a bad word. Independent dentists, we're not going to tell you what to do, but that's our doctors. And so that has gotten us, on the radar, and most of the large international companies in the US rank us as their number 3 customer. Right? That's a lot of power. And the third biggest customer in the US.
Yeah.
These international manufacturers. But here's this is the coolest part. You want the best takeaway from this? If you're a member, once you join SmileSource, as these benefits continue to increase and get better, we haven't even talked about insurance negotiations and what we're doing in different states across the country. As those start to get added and our members start to get better reimbursement, and if you look at what's the real currency in the future of dentistry? The real currency in the future of dentistry, you can't save your way to prosperity, but who controls the patient wins. He who controls the patient wins, right? So healthcare is changing dramatically, and we have a seat at that table. When you join SmileSource, whatever rate you join at, it's locked in at your option. So you can stay at your rate for the rest of your career, whereas those around you who wait 5 years to join, they're going to be paying double what you pay for the same benefit, but you get the early in advantage. So it's actually a really nice way to recognize the current value of what you came in at, but not nickel and dime you as we add additional resources and benefits. You just stay right where you're at.
So you're going to get the experience, leveraged experience of 200 or 325 other dentists combined that are an app click away. Basically, you get discounts on or preferred pricing on labs, on equipment, on supplies, on marketing agencies. You get better ad spend, you get more experience, you get all of these other things that are added in. And the way that, obviously there, like you said, there are costs that are involved in making this group go on, because there's people that are involved. There's training that's involved.
You're looking at overhead right here.
Yeah, you are the reason they have to pay. People have to pay to be a part of this this group. Right. And I found that if you get something for free, it doesn't typically make a whole lot of sense in the end. You get what you pay for sometimes. So the way, and you're saying the rate, a lot of, and I'm assuming this is the same with you guys, is that typically that you have, like we said before, the vendor discounts are 2 to 2.5% for supplies. I'm sure it's similar on the labs, on a total percentage of revenue and collections. So, say that's 2.5 to 6% in savings. And you guys would charge a certain percentage of the practice's revenue as being a member of SmileSource. Is that accurate?
That's right. Yep.
And I'm sure that the value proposition for you guys is to be able to say, yes, that is our, you pay us a certain percentage of your revenue, but we want you to make this much more than what you're paying us every year. So it's an immediate type of return. Plus all these, you can't put value on having the other experience of other people there, but you can put value on discounts and things like that. So that's accurate?
That's very accurate. In fact, so you're sitting there as a dentist watching this program, and you're saying, well, why aren't they using the exact numbers? Well, there's a lot of reasons why, based on the disclosure rules of the 50 states that I'm not going to say our rates on this interview. We'll do that individually with you appropriately as required by the different states that we practice business in. But what we can tell you is we do have a written guarantee. So if in your first year, and this is just on the savings, forget about the marketing and the CE and the collaborative practice management, just on the savings, if you don't save more than your fee in the first year, you get your money back of all the savings that you didn't realize. So there is a $0 financial risk in year one. There's literally
no risk
to eliminate the risk. That's just, and we can do that. It's like life insurance. I have life insurance. I don't want to use it, right? But I have it. So it's just your insurance. You don't want to use it. Why would you join something if you think it's going to fail? Right?
Exactly.
But it's just there so you feel comfortable about it.
Absolutely. So, all right. Well, thanks so much for your time and have a great day.
Thanks. My pleasure. Take care.
A special thanks to Trevor for coming on the show with us today. And as you heard, there's a lot of power in the group purchasing world in dentistry. There's strength in numbers if you remember back to your DARE days in middle school. So I want to end this with, I received a little bit of feedback. I shared this interview with some people, and they said that it sounded a little bit like I was pitching this company. I want to make sure you guys know I'm not being paid for this interview. I've not received any type of compensation for this interview. SmileSource has came highly recommended to me from a local personal connection, and I've also referred some of my clients to their services before. But this interview is strictly an information getting interview so that you can be more familiar with the company and so that you can reflect on if this is something that your practice would be interested in doing. This may not be the solution for you. I feel like it's a creative company that is doing some really cool things in the industry, so I wanted to make sure that their story was told. And so again, this isn't an endorsement. I'm not being paid for this interview. I'm not pitching anything to you. I think that you need to reflect on this if this is something that you can do for yourself, if this is something that makes sense. So with that, if you're on the fence on knowing if you should or shouldn't be doing something like this, Trevor has actually offered a free evaluation of your practice to see if you could benefit from the small source solutions and from the group mentality. So if you want to be evaluated for free, text practice to 33444. That's practice to 33444, and we'll send you the information to be able to have a free evaluation done by Small Source to see if you are a good fit. So again, that's practice to 33444, and startyourdentalpractice.com/bonus if you're outside of the US. Thanks. So that's it for today's episode, but that doesn't mean that the learning and implementation have to stop there. I've created a free report called The 15 Numbers That Will Make or Break Your Dental Practice. This report has been downloaded over 1,000 times by dental professionals. So if you want your free copy of this report that's going to outline what the most important numbers are in any dental practice, and it also includes how to look at your numbers, how to set goals, has a whole slew of really important information that is the culmination of all of my experience as a dental CPA, then just go to startyourdentalpractice.com/free gift. That is startyourdentalpractice.com/free gift. And so that's it for today, Ambitious Dentist. Again, I'm Jonathan Van Horn, CPA and ABV. I'll see you next week with another world-class practice owner or consultant that will help you start your very own dental practice. Thank you guys so much for being a part of the Start Your Dental Practice community. If you enjoyed today's episode, please do me a favor and go to startyourdentalpractice.com/iTunes to leave your honest feedback and review on iTunes. It's going to help me create a better experience, a better show, a better podcast for you, the ambitious dentist. Your feedback really does help, regardless if you like the show today or not. If you didn't like the show, let me know, because it's going to help me create a better show and podcast for you. Lastly, if you know of anybody that would benefit from today's episode and today's content, today's guest, please feel free to share with them on social media or through email.